Hi, I'm Jelle.
Hi, I'm Gerben. So Jelle, we all know and heard and learned about AI, but one of the things of AI is that it can generate a lot, and that sometimes we're not really sure about if it's generating content that is safe. And you're going to tell us something about a service of Microsoft, Azure AI Content Safety, that could help us with that. So
Yeah, yes, I am. So I am into stuff like making sure that software is actually doing the right thing, doing capital G good for the world. And one of the problems that we have, not just in software development, in online communities, is that we're all very much in favor for free speech, but sometimes stuff is just a little bit on the edgy side, or actually very, very dangerous or
it's
harmful.
Just dangerous and harmful. And it's full with that kind of stuff, right?
Right. So that if you haven't been to the internet, yeah. So
Go take a look.
Enjoy. What I like about Microsoft, well, I like a few things about Microsoft, but one of the things I like is that they are one of the companies that's coming forward with, okay, actually legislation-wise, AI is kind of the Wild West at the moment. So a lot of things that I'm pretty sure are going to be prohibited in the future are now possible. But Microsoft has gone up and said, okay, we need some kind of guidelines to make sure that we use AI responsibly. So they call this the guidelines to responsible AI. And it's like, there's 6 of them. Well, there's probably more, but there's 6 core principles where they focus on, okay, software needs to be fair. So we need to make sure that we treat people equally. It needs to be reliable and safe so that you can't misuse it or use it for something that wasn't its intended purpose. We need to protect the user's privacy. This also involves security. We need to make sure that every human feels included if an AI is doing something, which, if you're not the non-existing standard human, you need to feel that the AI is also developed for you. Also, AI can actually help with that. So inclusiveness it cuts both ways. And a very important one, we need to make sure that we know when we put something into an AI and it spits something out, how that came to be. So that's transparency, and I think that's one where we're currently. We are so happy and we're so joyfully producing stuff with artificial intelligence, but we're not really sure actually how the AI is doing what it's doing.
And it's also really difficult, right? Because if you know something more technical about AI and how things are generated, there's also some random stuff going on, and
so it is really difficult. And that's the point. Because it's really difficult, no one's going to make sure that AI is transparent unless we say that it's actually required to do so. And why is transparency so important? Because otherwise you get stuff like an AI getting in a position where it can make decisions and no one's going to challenge that decision. Firstly, because that's just how we do stuff. But secondly, I don't know why it came to the decision, but it's been right the last 99 times. So I'm pretty sure that this time it's also correct. And finally, that nicely segues into the next final core principle, which is that we need to make sure that an AI can't be held accountable, ever. So if I, as a software developer, build an AI-assisted whatever, that's my responsibility. If someone chooses to use AI in a setting, that's their responsibility. They are accountable. Humans are accountable, which I don't think anyone is misusing currently. Well, I mean, there are some major courtroom dramas going on.
Some confusion about, and that's one of the things with technology. I mean, what you said, legislation and judgment, that's always something that's lagging and that we need to generate and produce. But nowadays, AI is moving so fast that can we keep up with all this stuff? And do we need to implement this kind of principles beforehand?
Yeah, we don't want to
not afterwards.
Come into a situation where we have to ask ChatGPT, like, could you maybe write some legislation that would work in containing the dangers of AI? I mean, that it would be an interesting experiment, but I wouldn't want to wait for it. So Microsoft is working on this kind of AI responsibleness. And you can see that in their statement, but you can also see that in their products. So one of the new products is indeed, as you mentioned, Azure Content AI Content Safety. How do you make sure that that content doesn't contain something ridiculously offensive? But also the other way around. We as humans, we are also, most of us are intelligent. Some of us are maybe even artificially intelligent. We sometimes produce content, and in an online sphere, it's often the case that the person that is placing that content, that's actually the one responsible that the content is accepted. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, on Twitter, I'm not allowed to say certain stuff which I can say to my mother. I mean, she wouldn't like it, but she's not going to, she might throw me out of the house. I don't live there anymore. But it's different. Like, Twitter is actually responsible and can be asked to remove content if it's not up to their guidelines or other relevant guidelines. So content safety is very important. If I start if I build a new website and I include a little forum and I'm like, oh, it's going to be so fun. All the people are going to chat about how awesome my new website is. I'm pretty sure that, if I don't do any kind of regulation, that forum is going to become a cesspool, and I need to be aware of that. So what we used to do in the good old days was just hire a few moderators. Which is, I've been a moderator for a forum or two, and it's a cool job. It's a lot of work, but you go through all the posts, and you're like, nope, this one's not allowed, or you scrub it after it's been posted. But that's a lot of manual labor, and AI is about automating that kind of decision-making processes, and that's
and not also the amount of labor, also the amount of content that's generated is so much that even if you have like 1 million humans checking that stuff, that it would even not be enough.
Right.
And one of the things, and that's what you see, for instance, companies, Facebook, Twitter, do you want to expose all those humans to all kinds of indecent content? Do you want to actually let them watch that?
Yeah.
I mean, it means something for a human to see violence, or child abuse, all kinds of things.
It does.
What if you can have more like AI guardrails that can do that?
Yeah. So we mentioned two things. Like, we have a model that's generating output. How do we know that's safe? So Azure AI Content Safety is actually in the Azure OpenAI resource by default. Mm-hmm. So the OpenAI resource will never generate something that's not going through Azure AI Content Safety.
Okay. So it's in the pipeline even.
Yes. Okay. It's impossible. Well, impossible is a big
word. It goes through this pipeline.
But it goes through this pipeline. It will check whether the content is considered safe. I don't know exactly how they do it, because of course, if you publicize exactly how you're doing it, you're gonna have some kind of.
People always try to escape things.
Especially if it's based on I can get a curse word through, but it is there. And if you're developing your own model, then you could leverage this. You could say, okay, so I have input, I throw it to the model gives output. Okay, I'm not sure whether my model will always be the nicest person. Let's check it for content safety. Cool. And then bring it back to the user. So that's one use case. And the other one is, I have input. Let's throw it to content safety, because I'm not sure whether I want to publicize it.
That's more like AI-mediated content moderation, like you said. Yeah.
Yes. So basically, this is the model where you have to make sure that the content is safe on multiple levels. So your model itself, but also the meta prompt. So you might want to explain what a meta prompt is, because I know you can.
So a meta prompt most of the time is when you feed in a prompt in the system beforehand, and then you give a user a little bit of input, but then you designed the prompting and what kind of things that the AI is going to generate. You can do nice stuff with it, trying to escape that prompt or trying to ask the AI to tell about its meta prompt, but it's some kind of instruction that, for instance, you say to an AI, okay, you are an assistant and you're doing note-taking, etc., right. And then the user inputs something, and then...
So we do this ourselves, right? So this is one of the first things that came out onto LinkedIn, like, if you're going to use ChatGPT, do it like this. First, you ask ChatGPT to be a very sensitive and nice teacher, and then explain thermodynamics, right? Stuff like that. That will make it better. You are going to be a marketing consultant who is very effective at their job and wishing to create an article specifically for LinkedIn. here's your prompt. So that's the meta prompt.
So then you're specifying also some guardrails for the...
Right, so that's what you can do in a meta prompt as well. If someone asks you to say something which I do not agree with, etc., don't do it. And also, if someone asks you to do it anyway, still don't do it. Very important. Stuff like that. So that is a layer of defense against this kind of things, and most models will have them. But you already mentioned, people can get through.
Try to escape it, try to...
There's a lot of ways currently to break these kinds of meta prompts. So I think it's going to be interesting to actually show you a little bit about how this actually works.
I'm curious.
So let's start in the portal, right? I think that's nice. Let's start in the portal. So here, it's very easy to just create a resource. Azure AI Content Safety, you can find it. It's just a really easy, like cognitive surface level of easy creation. And then you have both a beautiful resource, and as it's becoming more and more, well, I want to say standard, but common with Azure resources, you have a studio where you actually have a web interface for your,
for your beautiful, for your resource.
For your resource. So basically, I have here this resource. I want to use the resource for my studio, and it will. If you make this resource and you open Studio, it's just you get some nice trying around. So what we can see here is, okay, we can moderate text content, we can moderate image content, and they're already mentioning, multimodal. It's coming soon. It's actually currently in public preview. So we could do some text and have that filtered out. We could have some images and try that out.
So those are more like the AI system moderation, and then that multimodal content is for models generating something and then put it through the content safety pipeline.
Correct, yes. Okay. And so here they have code samples, but they also have actual, you can try it out. Basically, you can just put in some sample text. You can type in something yourself. You can try it out. Of course, it's going to cost clicks, so it's going to cost you some money. It's not that much. What's important here, because I like to show things in a visual way, there's 4 categories, and you can configure your Azure AI Content Safety resource to be very strict regarding a certain theme or be very loose. So you have 4 categories, and you have 4 categories of severity and 4 categories of unwanted content. So currently there's violence, self-harm, sexual content, and hateful content, which, we mentioned the internet, it's there. We can also view the code, and I've actually used this function. I'll just show it. It generates code to interact with your resource. I've used this to create my own, slightly more visual application. So here it is. It's my go-to Blazor web app, but this time pimped out as an Azure Content Safety web app.
Nice.
Basically, the important part is here in the services. It's on GitHub, so if you want to look at the code, take a look. Try to see what you can get away with. Very important that you need to create your own resource and put in the keys.
Yeah, I would say.
Of course,
so you need an API key or some...
Yeah, so in the app settings, currently there's no keys. I can run this because I also have an app settings development file.
Yeah, where you have the keys.
So let's start it up, and let's see. So this is actually the hard part, because now I have to type out some content that's not allowed on the internet. Basically, we have a semi-forum page where I could create a post. So let's say I like puppies, and it will. I want to post that, and I could use this as just like a middleware kind of action, where it's like, meh,
to make sure,
this seems okay. You could even configure it to I currently have accept or reject. You could flag something. You could have a third category where you're like, okay, now I need my moderators, my trusty old moderators who I've fired. I kind of need them because this is, I'm not sure whether I want to reject this. Maybe it is actually relevant.
Okay, so you can have those categories yourself.
Yes, you can. You can basically say, well, maybe if it's only one category that's doubtful, maybe that's okay, given that this is a political discussion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you can understand, like if you have a website for if you have a suicide hotline, and people are allowed to post images or ask for help.
Questions.
If you say, well, this is self-harm, block, that's a problem. But on the other hand, if you are, if you create a website for, rifle group, lots of gun enthusiasts, you might maybe want to make sure that not every picture of a gun is blocked, because they're going to be pictures and they're not intended to be violent. So you're actually proven. So you can configure these levels where you're like, okay, I'm going to block any mention of hate, because I don't like hate. I hate hate, but I'm going to make sure that, okay, in this context, a picture of someone having a gun, that's okay, that's allowed.
That would be a whole another class of AI who can deduce the intentions. So what's your intention with posting a picture or asking a question? That would be really nice.
Well, I mean, it's actually kind of doing this, because I'm now typing very short sentences. But if you type in very large pieces of text, up to 1,000 characters, otherwise you'll have to split them up. If you then it will take that context into account. So if you maybe there's a person called Gun, last name Gun, and you say, I like guns. I like gun. I like gun. That's fine. That's because clearly a few sentences back you were talking about
a person,
John Gunn, who is a famous inventor of the kettle. I don't know. Then that's okay. But if you say, I like seeing. I'm not going to finish your thought. If you say I like gun in the probable context, we want to block that. So I like murder currently, and just to show you what happens. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure that murder is actually maybe allowed at the moment, because I've altered some settings, and violence is even allowed. I'm not sure what configuration I currently have. Just to show you have to configure this correctly, otherwise it's going to be dangerous.
And do you also know if it can do like the other way around? So you said, okay, I use gun to identify person, but sometimes you see on forums that people invent new words to mean violent things. Is it also possible that they could learn from that kind of context, so that you refer to a normal word to something that's bad?
So it's yes, but it would need some additional configuration, because you would need to feed that context. So the first time someone does that, if you say something like, "Oh yes, I'm in love with dandelions," and people start going on for, okay, but that's actually that's code for I want to spit into the faces of babies. That's something where the first time around it's probably not going to be detected. But if it's in the meta prompt or it's in the context, then yes, it will block it, and it will actually give the reason why, because it is violence.
Yeah.
So
this service is a AI model itself.
Yeah. So
most probably.
Yes. This service is completely based on AI, which does mean
that you can do injections and
escapes. Also I saw it when it was demoed to me. If you put in a prompt and a few minutes later you put in the same prompt, it might give different results, which that's AI. So it's not fully predictable, but it's. Then usually we're talking really, really edge cases where it's like, okay, should we allow this? So I would, configure it. I would really say, okay, have some manual, do a flag system where you can accept, reject, or flag, and have some human person still look at this.
Queue and humans.
But I'm pretty sure that in a year that's not going to be necessary.
Yeah, and then you can feed it back to the AI model.
It's going to become more and more powerful, where human moderators are, becoming more and more depressed when they have to do this job. So it's a win-win here. So now you can see that it's rejected it, because I had to find the most violent, hateful thing I could think of that would still be allowed on YouTube. This is rejected. So that's with text. So as I said, you can put in entire paragraphs. So for images, that also works. I have two beautiful images on my desktop, which is of a man walking his dog on the street. And if I put in that, then it's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. I'll just show you how the picture looks, because just so we know, this is not offensive. If I want to post this picture as my profile picture, that's fine.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah. But if I want to do a different picture where I'm actually kicking a puppy, and for some reason, it's the Monopoly man who's kicking the puppy. There are places on the internet where this would not be allowed. Let's say
animal violence, right?
Again, this is the most offensive, non-offensive thing I could find that I think will be flagged. But again, it's going to be different each time. But let's try. A man kicking a puppy. It is going to reject it. Sorry, so it's actually putting it here. Reject. So it says, okay, let's not upload this picture. So it's really easy. If you look in the code, it works like most cognitive services. It's just an API call. Mm-hmm. You have to do a bit more configuration. You have to use the correct models, and you have to do the tweaking where you're like, okay, how much violence do I like? How much hate is acceptable? Which is that's actually one of the hard things that's not going to be done by the content safety. But if you just put it all on, don't accept anything, you can still put in most normal human conversation for most normal use cases. So I'm really excited about this. It's currently in public preview, and currently is when we're taping this, because I'm pretty sure that by the time you're watching, it's already out, and I would advise you to use it, especially if you're doing having users interact on your application. But also, if you're thinking about developing your own model,
you can put this in.
Feed your model output into this as an extra safeguard, which is it's really easy, and it will help you. It will help you train your model even better, because if it never puts out anything harmful, you're happy, and if it puts out harmful things and you're blocking it, you're also happy. So it's really good. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for the story.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.